Hi everyone, we are live here at UC Berkeley, and behind me is a protest of animal rights activists and students who are protesting the use of animals in experimentation. And we already have press here, and I'm going to just show you the student organizer, Kara, who's doing an interview.
The Davis chapter of the Peter Group students. So today we are out here to raise awareness about what's going on at the California National Primate Research Center, which is run by UC Davis. The center engages in a lot of cruel animal research that is completely unnecessary in the 21st century. The center has had over 2 dozen violations of the Federal Animal Welfare Act. They've been sued plenty of times and fined thousands of dollars because their research is cruel and it's deadly, and we have a lot of better methods that we can conduct scientific research. We're in the 21st century. We can do things like work with stem cells and 3D computer modeling, microdosing with human volunteer participants. Animal testing is just completely unnecessary, and so we want to raise awareness of it and try to convince the school to stop using animals in their research.
What are you going to show here today?
So today we have a few people dressed as monkeys to symbolize the animals who are trapped in the primate center, showing the pain and the death that they go through. And then we have a couple of speak-outs and some songs kind of sharing what it's like in the primate centers and to do animal research, and just talking about the alternatives that we do have available.
And you kind of already went over it, but in a nutshell, what would you like to see done?
Well, we would like to see the school reform their methods of scientific testing and eliminate the use of non-human animals in research.
And people might think that research is very important. We need it for medical breakthroughs and all sorts of advances in medicine.
Yeah, research is quite important, and we definitely need research. And UC Davis prides itself as being, one of the top research universities. And so we expect the school to kind of live up to that title and to modernize their research. We can do so much more today than we could when people started researching on animals. So it's just outdated, and we need to really kind of show that there are better methods and that there's more advanced scientific research that we can and should be doing.
Is it cost prohibitive, or why aren't they making this switch? Old habits? Just old school?
Yeah, so there's a lot of potential reasons why they can do this switch. The Primate Center gets a lot of funding from the National Institute of Health, and so it would be, a lot to kind of reform what they're doing and create new methods of testing. I think it's certainly easier to stick to the way that people do things throughout history, but that's not how we change and evolve as a species.
Awesome. Thank you. Great job. Thanks for
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
So we haven't even begun the protest yet, and one of the student organizers, Kara, who's helping put this protest together at UC Davis, just gave a phenomenal interview talking about everything from what happens to the monkeys inside of the California Center, for the Research Center for Primates. And one of the amazing questions that was asked today is, hey, how come we're not able to? Well, actually, one of the questions that they asked was, the interviewers asked, is how come we're saying that animal testing is not good when obviously we might need it. Isn't research important? Isn't research an important thing? And Kara gave a really incredible answer, which is yes, research is really important, which is why we expect UC Davis to live up to its standards and continue innovating, continue researching other methods, and not just sticking to these old, primitive, horrible, cruel experiments which don't do anything for humans. And even if they did anything for humans, we have to ask ourselves the question, is it okay to insert and implant electrodes inside of the brains of monkeys to the point where, it's causing them an awful amount of pain, and they're isolated. Millions of, over 100 million animals every year in the United States alone are tortured and subjected to a horrible amount of misery. So let me show you the scene over here at UC Davis. Students from the group Students Opposing Speciesism and activists from Direct Action Everywhere were here, and the signs speak for itself. And cruel experiments on monkeys. And it's sad to think that in 2023, this is what we are having to protest, considering that this is a facility of education and research. And instead of researching more innovative methods, here we are sticking to horrible, cruel experiments which do nothing for humans, which do nothing for animals, and are cruel regardless, even if they were, you know, helping humans. Subjecting these poor animals to isolation, torture, and misery beyond our imagination is no excuse for experimentation. And here's a grueling statistic which really gave me chills. If you don't understand how, you know, the bureaucracy of these agencies and these entities, over 95% of drugs that pass in animal models fail in humans. So you really have to ask yourself, like, all this for what? All this for what? It's not even helping humans. So you really have to wonder, like, why are we continuing to do this? And it's because at the end of the day, it's paying these salaries, and people just don't, you know, these agencies and institutions just are scared of not being relevant anymore. But the reality is, animal testing is irrelevant. We have so many more ways of doing things, of doing research and experimentation. But here we are, sticking to, you know, just still doing horrible experiments on animals. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I know we don't have a lot of people watching yet, but if you could invite your friends and share with others, it's really, you know, awesome to see people gathering, especially students leading an organization and a movement to oppose speciesism, to oppose the experimentation on animals. And what's really scary is that this is a renowned. These are renowned schools, UC Davis and other places, which routinely engage in horrible cruelty and suffering towards animals. And yet we see them as like these places, these institutions where knowledge and education and change happens. And yet the simplest change that we could make today has not happened in these facilities, and it could happen easily. There's many groups and science initiatives and scientists who are coming together to encourage people and to adopt better methods of testing and research that don't require animals.
Close you in. Maybe just try different positions. No, I thought I could do it from there. No.
One of the things that gives me chills is to think about Neuralink, which a lot of people have probably heard of. And the link between Neuralink and UC Davis is that Elon Musk literally gave UC Davis $1.4 million to test on monkeys. And if you look up some of the tests that they're doing, First of all, it's very dystopian, the reality that, billionaires like Elon Musk and this company Neuralink is trying to create. They're trying to create this Fitbit for your brain where you just think of something and all of a sudden it happens. Think of like door dashing, some food, and now 20 minutes later it's at your door. Which, is that really benefiting? Is that really benefiting humanity? Is that really benefiting our earth? Is that really benefiting the animals? Is that really benefiting nature? And the answer is obviously not. So why are they doing this? They're doing this for profit and to continue putting the public in a lull where they have all their conveniences at the expense of these innocent animals. So imagine being a monkey who is separated from their families, separated from their mother, isolated, and then have their brain dissected to put these electrodes inside of your brain, and in the process, their faces are mutilated. They're in an incredible amount of pain. And then after all of this, they're thrown away like trash. And it's all thanks to endeavors like Elon Musk's Neuralink project, which is cruel and disgusting. And we don't need billionaires funding more cruelty and for their pet horror projects. We need companies to find more innovative solutions to make our planet more sustainable for our future generations.
Sure.
Going to play all the stream? I'm not distributing.
Wow, the sounds of these animals alone is making me very anxious and sad and horrified for what these animals go through.
That camera's going.
I am a monkey being tested on. My entire life I've been abused and crammed into a very small dark place where I can barely move my body. I go mentally insane from the boredom. I live a life full of nothing but suffering. I am forced to live in my own filth. They fill me up with drugs and strap me down, drill a hole into my head, they cut my spine, and then I am murdered. On my entire life I've been abused and crammed into a very small dark place where I can barely move my body. I go mentally insane from the boredom. I live a life full of nothing but suffering. I am forced to live in my own filth. They fill me up with drugs and strap me down, drill a hole into my head, they cut my spine, and then I am murdered.
As activists, one of the things that we hear so often from industry insiders is that we don't know what we're talking about, that we have never been part of the system, so we don't understand. But that is simply not true. You make those assumptions, but many of us do have scientific backgrounds, myself included. I worked for many years as a veterinary technician in emergency medicine and then transitioned into research. I spent many years in 2 different laboratories experimenting on animals. When you work in the scientific community, there is a lot of discussion, and you spend a great deal of your time going to lectures, seminars, symposiums, and conferences. In the university environment where I was, there was a great deal of collaboration between departments. Lots of students just like you came through to share the experiences that they had in other laboratories. And there was no shortage of meetings where the latest papers are discussed. My point is that what happens inside these laboratories is no secret to the people on the inside. We have all seen many horrific experiments, but when you are party to it, you make every excuse that what you're doing is not just okay or valid, but necessary for the betterment of all society. I told myself lies every day to make what I was doing bearable. I didn't think there was any other way that we could make progress because that was the status quo. But as scientists, we need to be open to listening and learning about new ways that we can make real, meaningful progress without performing these antiquated, cruel, and very often unsuccessful or even detrimental experiments on animals. Society for centuries has justified incredibly cruel experiments in the name of the greater good. But what goes on here is not good for anyone. As with any other industry, this is all about money and prestige. You have to write grants so that you can get money, so that you can write papers and try to get those papers into the top journals so that you can be recognized in a way that gets you more grants, so that you have more money, so that you can do more experiments to write more papers, and along the way, you try to make incremental progress. There are billion-dollar industries dedicated to breeding animals of all species into existence simply to put them through a life where they will never know kindness. They will never be loved. They will never see the sunshine or walk on green grass with their friends. Instead, they will live behind bars and walls. They will only see fluorescent lights, and they will only meet humans who put them through misery, pain, and suffering. But make no mistake here, whether you're talking about issues like p-hacking or lack of reproducibility with data, we all know that there's a big problem in the scientific community. We know that over 90% of the experiments that are done on animals fail once they get to human trials. So you are torturing these animals for nothing. There is no other way to say it. You are torturing them. There are thousands of monkeys being held prisoner right here at this primate research center. And we know that there have been dozens of violations against the Animal Welfare Act. If you know anything about monkeys, you know that they are extremely intelligent beings with complex emotions. They are very similar to us, but they aren't us. And there is no excuse for exploiting them against their will simply because we have deemed it necessary. It's not necessary. And if you don't think that's true, ask yourself if you would be willing to have the same experiments done to you for the greater good. It's past time to end these barbaric practices. We now have computer models, organs on a chip, billions of points of human metadata to pull from, as well as many other modern alternatives to animal testing. While none of these alternatives is 100% perfect, neither is the way that we do things now. It's not even close to that. Only those include cruelty. So we ask you here today to be with us on the right side of history. Speak up. Say no more to all of this unnecessary animal experimentation.
Thank you. So, Avery, stand over here. Of course. Bueno. Estoy sufriendo, viviendo en la miseria. Dime si tú harías algo, por favor te pido haz algo. Me tratas como menos, dices que soy diferente, pero estás equivocado, estás muy equivocado. Soy como tú, siento dolor, amor también. Soy como tú en un cuerpo diferente, sin embargo un cuerpo aún viviente. Déjame ser libre de tu tiranía. Es todo lo que he querido, lo que siempre he querido. Liberation for the animals. Liberation, 'cause we are all animals, we're animals.
Go on, be brave. Go out there, make history. Bring justice to my life, love. Bring justice to the lives lost. And every day they will try to convince you that humane murder's justified. Believe me, I don't wanna die, but I'm at your mercy. And you are the difference. Be the voice of the silence, and the silence stop the violence. And organize, mobilize, speak up for the defenseless. Without you, we're defenseless.
Liberemos a los animales. Liberemos, porque todos somos animales. Fear is what drives harmful behavior. Let love guide you towards justice on this day. Yeah. Liberemos a los animales. Liberemos, porque todos somos animales.
Please, if you can, is this on? Please, if you can hear me right now, I would ask you to imagine something just for a few minutes. Imagine that you are confined in a steel cage, a cage that is only slightly larger than your own body. Furthermore, a device has been fitted around your neck to immobilize your head. You cannot turn your head in any direction or look up and down. You long to stretch. You cannot move. You have no idea when, or actually even if, this device will ever be removed from your neck. And it is very hard to tell how much time is passing because there are no windows where you are, there is no sunlight, there is no sense of night and day. It is very hard to assess the passage of time. It is very disorienting. But at some point, oh, and also, please imagine that you are very, very hungry and desperately thirsty. There are beings in charge here, and when they ask you to perform a task, and you know that they will give you a drop of water if you perform that task, you do so. They give you a teaspoon of water, but it does nothing to quench your thirst. It does nothing at all to ease the chronic dehydration headache pounding in your temples. You can't remember the last time you had enough to eat and drink. And time passes, and then finally one of the beings who seem to be in charge of every aspect of your life comes and removes this device from your neck and takes you out of this cage. But they just take you to another cage, a cage that they refer to as your home, even though there is nothing home-like about it. You don't have any family members there, no loved ones. You don't have any friends to play with. There are no trees to climb, there's nothing to explore, and you are all by yourself. It is devastatingly boring, and you are so lonely. You don't have a single friend to cuddle up to. You are so desperately lonely. And you wrap your own arms around your own body and rock yourself back and forth, trying to self-soothe, trying to bring yourself a little bit of comfort in this life that you've been given. And it works a little bit for a while. Again, it's hard to tell if it's days or weeks. For a while, you're able to comfort yourself a little bit, but after a while, it just stops working. And so you start to pound your own head against the bars of your cage. It hurts like hell pounding your head on steel bars, but the physical pain. And UC Davis runs this lab where they are imprisoned. It's called the California National Research Primate Center. UC Davis, unfortunately, has a very long history of using and abusing animals in scientific experimentation. There is a law called the Animal Welfare Act, a federal law that offers some protections to some species, including non-human primates, limited protections, and yet UC Davis has repeatedly violated the Animal Welfare Act. PETA made a list of the 10 worst laboratories in the whole country, and UC Davis was in the top 10. To make those evaluations, PETA looked at 3 factors. The first was the sheer number of animals that were being killed. The second was how painful and invasive the experiments performed on those animals were. And the third, and this is really important, the third was the scientists who ran the laboratory, how unwilling they were to change, how unwilling they were to consider switching to relevant, non-cruel methodologies. And that's wild, right? Because scientists are supposed to embrace change. They're supposed to pick up on new technologies and run with them and make the world better with them. But these scientists here at UC Davis are doing the opposite. They are digging in their heels. UC Davis Lab, in addition, in just a couple years ago, it did work with a company called Neuralink. Neuralink is owned by Elon Musk, and the goal of Neuralink is to develop a chip that can be implanted in the human brain. Neuralink and Davis, in their research, some 1,500 animals have been tortured and died so far. 1,500 animals are dead right now because of these studies. Some of them were monkeys, some of them were pigs, some of them were rats. Many different kinds of animals suffered and died. The Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine actually sued UC Davis. They called UC Davis a chronic violator of the Animal Welfare Act, and they sued Davis in relation to this research performed with Neuralink. And they obtained many documents on the studies that were performed. And I urge everyone to Google this and read what was done to these animals, because it is horrifying. There are many incidents that are just clearly unethical. One of the incidents, to give you an example, is they were breaking into monkeys' skulls to implant this chip, and then they had created holes in the bones of the skulls, and so the scientists used an unapproved adhesive to fill in the gaps in the monkey skulls. This was an unapproved product. It led to brain hemorrhaging. The monkey's brains hemorrhaged blood. They suffered devastatingly and they died. Yet these scientists have not had to account for this. They are continuing to practice. Consider if a human MD used an unapproved product on a human patient and that patient suffered massively and died. That MD, that doctor, would never work again. And others in their profession would revile them. They might even be in prison. And people will tell you it's different. Oh, it's different for humans and animals. Whatever you think about that, just consider this. Scientists in power have a long history of experimenting on disempowered populations of humans. Scientists in power have experimented on people in prisons, people of color, people with disabilities, and they weren't even having to hide that they were doing this. This was actually considered pretty much acceptable, ethical. I'm sure there were some who questioned it, some who said this isn't right, but largely it was just considered okay. And now we look back in horror that these things were done to human beings, that they suffered and were used without their consent for scientific experiments. The line is moving and Davis needs to pay attention to that. Many European countries have actually outlawed experimenting on great apes. Many countries have outlawed that. And our own National Institutes of Health, which is the most powerful health agency in the United States, in 2015, it stopped funding research on chimpanzees that was at all invasive. If anything was going to cause suffering to chimpanzees, NIH, which funds most of the research in this country, was no longer going to fund it. And experiments on chimpanzees in the United States just don't take place anymore. And why is this? Is it because when we look into a chimpanzee's face, we see ourselves and they look into our face and see themselves? And in fact, if we look at the reason that scientists use to justify experimenting on animals, and in particular experimenting on non-human primates, they will always say, well, they're so much like us, so we're going to get relevant results. But if that's true, chimpanzees are the most like us. Chimpanzees share 98.8% of the same DNA as humans. Almost 99% of human and chimpanzee DNA is the same. So if that is the reason, why are we saying we're not going to use chimpanzees anymore? So what I'm saying here is the line is moving. We are evolving. Scientists need to evolve with this and pay attention. Davis is on the wrong side of history right now, but they have an opportunity to change. And the students here, you have power. Speak up. Tell them you're not okay with this primate center. You're not okay what's being done with to these animals, please, because they are suffering right now. You can't get valid scientific results this way, what they're doing. What they're doing is unethical, unjustifiable, and simply unproductive. Because when you experiment on animals that are toxically stressed, toxically lonely, to the point of being mentally destabilized, how are you going to get relevant results to human health or anyone's health? It makes no sense. It's time for UC Davis to evolve. Because it's not science.
It's science.
It's not science.
It's science.
Animals' lives are their right.
We will not give up this fight.
Animals' lives are their right.
We will not give up this fight.
Their lives.
Not ours.
Their families.
Not ours.
Their friends.
Not ours.
Their bodies.
Not ours.
Their freedom.
Not ours.
Love is unstoppable.
Another world is possible.
Justice is unstoppable. Ethics are unstoppable. Compassion is unstoppable. It's not science. It's not science. Monkeys love their families.
Just like us.
Monkeys play with their friends.
Just like us.
Monkeys feel joy.
Just like us.
Monkeys suffer.
Just like us.
Monkeys get scared.
Just like us.
Monkeys get lonely.
Just like us.
Monkeys bleed.
Just like us.
Monkeys want to be with their friends.
Just like us.
Monkeys want to live.
Just like us.
It's not science.
It's violence.
It's not science.
It's violence.
I bet you that a lot of you, when you came to UC Davis, had no idea that this was going on campus and that this was associated with your school. And I don't think that's an accident, because UC Davis does a lot to hide what they do to animals. And that's not just at UC Davis, that's at universities and colleges across this country and around the world. I actually went to university in Canada, where I grew up. And I went to a regular school. I had no idea what was going on my campus. Until all of a sudden, I became part of that very industry. I graduated my undergrad degree in biomedical physiology and didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And my professor said, why don't you come work in my department? You can get funding, you can be a grad student. And I said, sure, why not? That sounds like something productive to do. We were going to help humans, we were going to create a medical device. That seemed like a good thing to do for the world. And I don't know if I was intentionally just blocking out what I knew was going to happen, or if I really was that ignorant. But before you knew it, I was part of a vivisection lab, a lab where we were testing on animals who were alive. And in this case, these animals were pigs. But whether they were monkeys or pigs or rabbits or mice or rats, it doesn't matter, because scientists, every legitimate scientist, will agree that animals are sentient beings, they're conscious, they feel pain, they can suffer, they have an intention to have joy and happiness in their life, and they want to avoid pain. So all of these animals are the same. But the thing is that this lab that I was working at was even hidden on campus. It wasn't even on campus, it was off campus, kind of like this Primate Center. You had to have a very special badge to get in, and inside the walls were lined with propaganda posters reminding us why it was okay what we were doing. You know, because they knew that we would have these doubts in our hearts. And they were saying, oh, don't worry, you're going to save children's lives. Or don't worry, this is totally acceptable because these are not humans. So even within this own lab, they are indoctrinating you. And any sort of question as to why we were doing what we were doing, did we really need to use pigs? What happened to these pigs? Completely shut down. I remember this really, really awful situation, one of my first times in the lab, where there was a live pig on the table, anesthetized, just like you would have a human in surgery, except for this pig didn't actually need surgery, and they also did not consent. And we were implanting a device in them, and the device wasn't going to kill them. You know, they could have very much recovered and gone and lived their life on a sanctuary, but we were done with our experiment, and we wanted to take a little tissue sample, so we all killed the pig. We all said, well, this pig is no longer needed, so now we're just going to kill them, and literally dump them into a trash can. Slide them from the operating table into a trash can and wheel them downstairs in the basement of this lab, where I actually had no idea where they were going to go because we were not allowed to go down there. And before we did this, I mean, I wasn't an animal rights activist at this time. I didn't know even what a sanctuary was, but I remember asking, like, do we need to kill this pig? Like, surely something else can happen to them. They could have a good life after this. And people kind of looked at me, surprised why I would even ask this question, and said, well, there's nowhere else for them to go. This is their purpose. And that's all that's going to happen to them. And that moment, that was a very long time ago. And that moment still sticks in my brain because it just shows how indoctrinated everybody in this system is. And I was in that too. So that's not a slight at those people. It's just the way it's always been done. And those words are so dangerous. When we just say we're going to keep doing things because that's the way it's always been done. Yeah, we're going to use animals because, well, we always have. Yeah, we're going to kill them when we no longer need them because, yeah, we always have. Yeah, pigs are here for us to experiment on and monkeys are here for us to experiment on. That is ridiculously offensive and oppressive thinking that has got us into some very serious trouble before in human history. And that is exactly what's going on here. So when UC Davis tries to hide this from you, they are doing it on purpose. When they say that this is helping humans, they are lying to you. And when they say that there's no alternatives and that this is necessary for human progress, they are lying to you. And the thing is, I'll be honest, I am not a student at UC Davis. And they don't care that much about what I have to say. But they care about what you have to say. Because you pay them tuition money, and if you start complaining, they will pay attention. And the thing that's really difficult about animal experimentation is that us, as consumers, we don't interact with it on a daily basis. It's not something where you're going to this lab and paying them every day, and so it can seem really difficult to know what you can do about it. How can you do something to end this atrocity? What you can do is start complaining and start taking action and writing to people and documenting it and demanding to see what's going on inside there. Because if this is happening on campus, then you should be able to see what's going on. And when enough students rise up and take action, they will start listening. Other people have shut down primate labs on their campuses. UC Davis can be next. And that will be a start to ending all experimentation on animals, which will obviously be better for animals, but will also be better for human animals as well. So we don't waste billions of dollars on failed experiments, giving laboratory workers PTSD from what they have to do, and actually developing drugs and cures that can help humans who desperately need this help. Because this is not science.
It's violence.
It's not science.
It's violence.
It's not science.
It's violence.
Don't buy UC Davis's lies.
Animals do not want to die.
Don't buy the humane lie.
Animals do not want to die.
Monkeys feel pain.
Just like us.
Monkeys can suffer.
Just like us.
What do the animals need?
Animal liberation.
When do they need it?
Now.
Are we going to fight for it?
Yes.
Are we going to get it?
Yes.
What do the monkeys need?
Animal liberation.
One struggle, one fight.
Human freedom. Animal rights.
Same struggle, same fight.
Human freedom. Animal rights.
One struggle, one fight.
Human freedom. Animal rights.
Same struggle, same fight.
Human freedom. Animal rights.
Animals lose their families.
Just like us.
Animals feel pain.
Just like us.
Animals feel fear.
Just like us.
Animals love their families.
Just like us.
Animals want to be free.
Just like us.
Animals want to be happy.
Just like us.
What do they want?
Animal liberation.
When do they want it?
Now.
Are we going to fight for it?
Yes.
Are we going to get it?
Yes.
One struggle, one fight.
Human freedom. Animal rights.
Same struggle, same fight.
Human freedom. Animal rights.
Love is unstoppable.
Another world is possible.
Truth is unstoppable.
Another world is possible.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. The primate center has to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho.
The primate center has to go.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. The primate center has to go. It's not science.
It's violence
Science is not an excuse.
for animal abuse.
Monkeys want to live.
Just like us.
Monkeys deserve to be happy.
Just like us.
It's not science.
It's violence.
What do the animals need?
Animal liberation.
When do they need it?
Now.
Are we going to fight for it?
Yes.
Are we
we going to fight for it? Are we going to get it? One struggle, one fight.
Human freedom, animal rights.
Same struggle, same fight.
Human freedom, animal rights.
What do the monkeys need?
Animal liberation.
Where do they need it?
Now.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. Hey, hey, ho, ho. The Primate Center tells lies. Monkeys do not want to die. The Primate Center tells lies. It's not science.
It's violent.
It's not science.
It's violent.
It's not science.
It's violent.
Science is no excuse.
For animal abuse.
Science is no excuse.
For animal abuse.
Science is no excuse.
For animal abuse.
Monkeys want to live.
Just like us.
Monkeys want to live.
Just like us.
Monkeys want to live.
Just like us.
Monkeys want to be with their families.
Just like us.
Monkeys want to be with their families.
Just like us.
Monkeys want to be with their families.
Just like us.
Monkeys deserve justice.
Just like us.
Monkeys deserve justice.
Just like us.
Monkeys deserve justice.
Just like us.
They feel pain.
Just like us.
They have friends.
Just like us.
They get scared.
Just like us.
They want to live.
Just like us.
There's no excuse.
For animal abuse.
There's no excuse.
For animal abuse.
There is never an excuse.
For animal abuse.
Love is unstoppable. Because love is unstoppable. Their lives. Their freedom. Their bodies. Their families. Their babies. One struggle, one fight.
Human freedom, animal rights.
One struggle, one fight.
Human freedom, animal rights.
Animals' lives are their right.
We will not give up this fight.
Animals' lives are their right.
We will not give up this fight.
Animals want to live.
Just like us.
Monkeys want to live.
Just like us.
Monkeys deserve justice.
Just like us.
Monkeys have babies.
Just like us.
What do we want?
Animal liberation.
When do we want it?
Now.
Are we going to fight for it?
Yes.
Are we going to get it?
Yes.
Don't buy the humane lie.
Animals do not want to die.
Don't buy the humane lie.
Animals do not want to die.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. Hey, hey, ho, ho.
Sorry, I know there's chanting in the background, but you organized this protest, and can you just tell us about why you're inspired as a student to take action?
Monkeys do
So
not
I'm
want to
inspired as a
die.
student because
It's not
I really
science.
like and value my university,
It's
but I
not
don't
science.
like what they're doing. It's completely
Science is no
unnecessary, and
excuse.
I hate the fact that my tuition could
Science
be
is
going to
no
this. I
excuse.
certainly did not approve of that, and I want it to change.
Because monkeys want to
like
live.
I said, since I've already in school, I want us to see. I want to see
Monkeys
us do
want
better.
to live.
You know, UC Davis is a better university than
want to be
a
with their
school that's
families.
engaging in like animal research.
And how are they, what are they doing? I know you talked about it earlier.
Monkeys deserve
Yeah, so
justice.
UC Davis is testing on
Because they feel
thousands of
pain.
animals, including over 5,000
they have
non-human
friends.
primates, and a lot of
they
invasive
get
and all
scared.
ultimately deadly experiments that
They want to
fail to
live.
benefit humans in the long run.
There's no
Well, thank you so much for
excuse.
organizing this protest, and I know I saw students listening, so hopefully people will
There's
join
never an
you all.
excuse.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Love is unstoppable. Love is unstoppable. Their lives. Their freedom. Their bodies. Their families. Their babies. One struggle, one fight. One monkeys deserve justice.
Just like us.
These monkeys feel pain.
Just like us.
These monkeys get scared.
Just like us.
These monkeys feel joy.
Just like